Tom going to make it tonight?
I believe so.
Call the meeting to order. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
One
God,
together,
indivisible, with liberty and
with liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice. Thank you. Item 2 is roll call.
Morrison,
Here, I can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Larson,
Here we go.
Wunschel,
Here.
Here.
Hanson,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Moriarty.
Here,
Item 3 is the consent agenda. 3A is a motion to approve city council minutes of May 4, 2020. B, licenses, approved Class E liquor license, Class B wine permit, and Class C beer permit with Sunday sales for Hy-Vee Stores Incorporated, subject to final approval by the Iowa Alcoholic Beverages Division. C is a resolution adopting final assessment schedule for nuisance abatement and confirming and levying the assessments for snow removal. D is a motion to approve sidewalk construction and assessment agreement with Brian Trojan of 901 East 10th Street. E is a motion to approve the purchase of a roll-off container for the Solid Waste Division roll-off containers from Elliott Equipment of Grimes, Iowa for $16,306. This is a CIP item. F is a motion to approve the Renaissance Initiative grants as recommended by the Renaissance Initiative Committee. G is a motion to the setting of a public hearing on proposed zoning ordinance text amendment, amending Title IX, Chapter 13, Section 1 of the Spencer City Code concerning subdivision definitions for June 1, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. And H is a motion setting a public hearing on proposed zoning ordinance text amendment, amending Title IX, Chapter 14 of the Spencer City Code concerning planned unit residential development for June 1, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
I'll make that motion to approve the consent agenda.
First by Donovan,
I'll second.
second by George. Any discussion or question on the items?
Looks like we got one roll call item in there. So to misprint.
No, we typically always do the consent agenda by roll call.
Okay.
Some it's a resolution or a motion. Don could explain the difference. Requires each.
Okay.
Any questions on the items?
How many
No.
roll-off containers are we getting at that?
So 1 10-yard and 3 20-yarders.
Any other questions? All right, we'll call the vote. Teresa?
Morrison,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Wunschel,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Moriarty.
Aye.
I'm here now, Teresa.
All right, thank you. Welcome, Tom. Item 4 is a public hearing on plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for construction of the 4th Avenue Southwest Recreational Trail Project, Spencer, Iowa. I declare the public hearing open. Have we received any written comments in favor of or against?
We have none.
Okay. Are there any oral comments in favor of or against? Hearing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Item 4A1 is a resolution approving and confirming plan specifications and form of contract for 4th Avenue Southwest Recreational Trail Project, Spencer, Iowa.
I'll make a motion on that, Mayor.
First by Ron,
I'll second.
second by Bill. Any discussion or questions on this?
Is anybody with Case Coot and Nelson on board, or what time frame are we looking on this project?
Yeah, Ron, it's a bid letting through the DOT. The bid letting date is June 16th. I wouldn't expect to have contracts signed and any construction until probably the middle of August or September. So
Are they looking at this season then, or?
we did do a completion date of it'll end up being like June 1st, 2021. And it's not a hard completion date. It's based on working days. So.
All right.
Thank you, Ron. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll call the vote.
Crazy loud. You can't call that?
Nelson,
Aye.
Orison,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Winchell,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Moriarty.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 5, old business. 5A is a ordinance amending the provisions of Title 7, Chapter 14 of the Spencer City Code concerning all-terrain vehicles with an effective date of 5/27/2020. This is the third and final filing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Donovan, second by George. Okay. George is the second, I think. Any discussion on this?
So we're starting the 27th after Memorial Day weekend.
It doesn't
Correct.
go into effect until after it's been published. And this allows time for publication in the newspaper.
All right, thank you.
When they put this in the newspaper, are they going to put all of the laws and regulations on them that is in the old reg also? Or is it going to be just what changed in the new ordinance?
It's just the new ordinance that gets published.
Okay, because I know there's a lot of questions on the next one that we're going to go to that a lot of people do not know the current laws on it. That's being very confusing out there right now. This one isn't so bad.
We had discussed at the committee meeting, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, that we have time between this evening and when it goes into effect to do some media around what the rules are and share that with at the county. That's where the ATVs will be licensed, things like that. So make sure that the word is out there what the rules, what the new rules are and existing for golf carts.
Yeah, I think that needs to be put out there more as on the rules. So
It's a good idea. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the vote.
Aye.
Orison,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Winchell,
aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Moriarty.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 5B is an ordinance amending Title 7, Chapter 10, Section 6 of the Spencer City Code concerning the operation of golf carts on Spencer streets with an effective date of 5/27/2020. This is the third and final filing.
So moved.
First by Tom,
Second.
second by Donovan. Discussion or questions related to this item? We'll do the same public publicity campaign, Donovan, that you mentioned. That's a good idea. Do some probably mixed media, print, radio, and maybe a Facebook Live or something like that. You're muted, Donovan. There you
One
go.
thing we want to remember is people aren't registering these at the courthouse to get the rules. And we got a lot of young underage 16 without driver's license thinking they're going to drive them. And we definitely don't want that. And all of a sudden you got 5 kids jumping in a golf cart or whatever. So
Good points. Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the vote.
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
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 Moriarty.
Aye.
Teresa,
Brian.
we're having a really hard time hearing you, Teresa.
Yeah, Brian, she's not coming through.
No, not at all.
We're reading your lips.
Yelling, so I don't know what else to do.
Okay.
All right.
You can do
We
Ward
are-
1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4.
Yeah.
We could thumb wrestle for at large.
There you go.
All right. Item 5C is an ordinance amending Title 4, Chapter 5, Section 21 of the Spencer City Code concerning solid waste rates and charges with an effective date of 7/1/2020. This is the second filing. I know we had discussion in the Finance Committee as well on this.
I'll make a motion.
First by Bill,
I'll second.
second by George. Any discussion? Maybe a quick recap of the Finance Committee discussion.
Brian, you want to? Go ahead.
Sure, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, we met last week again and reviewed it. As we discussed there, it is a 4% increase, but what we talked about and I put out was that the impact, 4% is kind of hard to understand, but the impact to the residential is 73 cents a month. And so that's the impact on the residential. And then I followed up with a memo over the weekend after our agenda meeting, and I talked with Bill too. I think we we're stuck on the residential side. Commercial is a little bit different. I think it's $1. I want to say 70 something up to 32, give or take the range, and it all depends on the size of dumpster and the frequency of delivery. But that's the same percent increase. And then this is a 1-year increase with anticipation of an item later on the agenda, looking forward as to how we move it going forward as to how we structure solid waste rates.
Yeah, Brian, thank you. I appreciated all the discussion that we had last week. I thought it was pretty thorough. A lot of good ideas. Of course, originally we thought we were just dealing with residential. That's really all we talked about, but the commercial also came into play. So Brian, thank you for explaining that.
Hey, Brian, have you gotten any phone calls or any feedback from the commercial side on this?
No.
Has anybody gotten any?
I have not.
No.
No.
I have not. This is the second filing. So is there any other questions or discussion on this? Okay, we'll call the vote.
Nelson,
Aye.
Orson,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Winchell,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Breet,
Aye.
Moriarty.
Aye.
Thank you. So Brian, next meeting, does Teresa get a fancy headset like that?
Well, hopefully next meeting we're all in person.
Okay, that'll be
I
good.
actually had one for her, but her computer doesn't have the right jacks on it.
All right. Okay, item 6, new business. 6A is a motion to approve proposal from PFM Financial Advisors to perform a rate and revenue study for the sanitary sewer enterprise system, the solid waste enterprise system.
I'll introduce that motion.
First by Bill,
Second.
second by Tom. Questions, discussion, clarification related to this?
Yeah, just a clarification. Is that going through, it's going through all the rates, commercial and residential?
Yes.
Yeah, if they're going to do an in-depth study and seen on both sides for, hopefully what we'll get out of it is what our best rate structure is to cover everything. So it'd be all classes, all types of waste or disposal on both. So it's a full rate recommendation and looking at everything. So
But if they come back, but this is just going to do on our cost analysis, or this is going to look at other communities, or what is it going to entail?
the bulk of it is looking at exactly the needs that the system needs. So it's going to look not only at current operations, it's going to look at being able to fund current operations plus the depreciation or set aside for what we need for future equipment. And like on the sewer side, we'll be looking at debt needs. How do we service everything? So it's really looking at, instead of trying to justify us against other communities, it's really taking a look at what's the true needs of our operations from all aspects, and then looking at how to fund that and what we need to fund that.
Well, that's what I want to see, because if we do other communities and it doesn't carry our cost, then
Yeah.
the study doesn't really do any good.
Yeah, no, it's an in-depth of giving them our information, both budgeted and past financials and customer accounts, and seeing, okay, how can we rate these based on, so many customers, the tonnage that's coming across the scale at the transfer station that we've been keeping track of the last year on the solid waste side, and how do we delve that out to make sure that, are the rates that we're charging each class fair and equitable, or are we putting the burden on maybe one class over the other, or whatever. That's what the whole study's designed to do, is look at our costs in total, and then figure out the rate structure to support that, and then obviously, et cetera.
All right, Brian, thank you for the information.
I know we're quite a ways, second filing and using this company, but at the same time, is there multiple companies that do offer this service, or is this a one time and we've reached out to one person that does it and we found somebody? So I'm just kind of curious on that aspect on, and I guess I'm going to probably bring that up when we do surveys and we do financial advisors and different things like that, is there multiple companies that we can get to get the best bid, to get the best bang for the buck? Also, who's going to offer the most service with it too?
There are other companies that do this. We have a long-standing relationship with PFM. They do our current financial models, and then they also are involved in all of our debt issuance. So that's why we checked with them first, because we do have a relationship. They do understand our current operations and stuff now. But there are other, from this standpoint, there are other companies that could have provided us with a proposal. We just chose the one that we have a relationship with right now.
If you read the document that they gave us regarding a conflict of interest, they also do work for the utilities as well, or have done work for the utilities.
Well, I just noticed that came out June of 19. Some of these talks was prior to, a few of us on the board too. So that's why I was just bringing that question up.
Yep.
No, PFM we have them on retainer for other financial services throughout the year. They do all, like I said, they do all the financial modeling for us that we have, and then they do all of our assistance with our debt issuance. So.
Yeah, and I get that, but just, I guess in looking down the road, that sometimes, if one's doing it that does a lot of our other stuff, sometimes we get more of a bang for a buck if we get somebody that specializes in it too. So just ideas. I'm good with this though.
Thank you, Donovan. Any other questions or comments on this item? I believe this is a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 6B is a motion to approve subcontract agreement between the city and Berglund and Cram for preparation of design guidelines for the Grand Avenue Historic Commercial District.
I'll move that motion.
First by George,
Second.
second by Tom. Maybe some quick background for the new council members. I know this is a request for 5 or 6 years at least from the Historic Preservation Commission, and we've been working on it for at least a year to get it to this point. But if there's a staff person or somebody who can just give a brief update as to why the guidelines are important downtown.
Yeah, so as the mayor said, Historic Preservation Commission has been working with the State Historic Preservation Office for quite some time on the creation of design guidelines for the historic downtown district. Last year, in July, the council approved applying for a certified local government grant, which would cover 60% of the costs towards putting these design guidelines together. The city's responsible for the additional 40%, which include in-kind contributions. The planning department put RFPs out for design consultants, and they received 4 proposals back. The Historic Preservation Commission subcommittee met and recommended hiring Berglund and Cram in the amount of $20,500. The the design guidelines really became a topic of interest to the council when we had our rather intense and at times complicated discussion on murals.
Painful.
I didn't say that.
Wrong.
But there was, especially from the Historic Preservation Commission, a concern about ensuring that property owners understand the implications of if you put a mural on your historic building, what does that do to your designation? What does that do to the district? And so putting together these design guidelines is that it helps provide guidelines for the district. If you want to replace your windows, here's what the best methods are to maintain that historical designation and to maintain that consistency throughout the downtown. So what you have in front of you is the agreement with Berglund and Cram for them to do that work. Historic Preservation is prepared to be the conduit for meeting with them. There is the intention to have not just property owners, but business owners, because we know that some buildings are owned by individuals who don't own the business in them, so that everyone is part of the discussion on what those guidelines should be and look like going forward.
Thank you, Amanda. Any other discussion or question on this?
Yeah, Amanda, when we go through these guidelines, I'm not 100% on board because I know we'll have to approve them once they come forward, but I just see it putting a lot of undue restrictions on property owners downtown. Maybe Tom has, being he is a downtown business owner, the restrictions and what his thought is on making the conformity and rules and regulations that somebody else is bringing forward for you to do. They could put some undue expenses on property owners downtown.
Well, just to clarify, these are guidelines, and so when the discussion is finished, council will have the opportunity to review them, and they can adopt them as guidelines, or council can say, we want to enforce A, B, and C of the guidelines. D, E, and F are optional, but we're going to incentivize these portions of the guidelines for compliance. So there isn't anything that requires property owners to conform with these. They are guidelines until such time that the council says, we want to require this out of them. And I wouldn't recommend doing that without incentivizing it. Right now, we don't have an incentive program established for that.
And I agree, that's kind of the line we're going on, but it could go down to another, you know, if we get these guidance, there may be a push by certain people to try to put them into or guidelines that they do have to follow. And I know we have some restrictions down there right now that are giving some of the business owners a lot of trouble. You know, some fascia things that, I mean, just looking at a downtown business that's having issues right now on facade and stuff. So that's my concern. But,
Good discussion. Any other questions this time? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 6C is a motion to approve removal and demolition agreement with Kenneth Grandstaff for the 118 West Park Street property.
I'll make a motion on that.
First by Ron,
Second.
second by Tom. Any discussion or questions related to this proposal, contract? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 6D is a motion to approve separation of employment and general release agreement with Steve Hallgren.
I'll introduce that.
First by Bill.
Second.
Sorry, who was that?
Second. Donovan.
Second by Donovan. Any questions or discussion related to this item?
I have one question.
Yep, Tracy, go ahead.
I just want to be sure he was given every opportunity to pass the tests and it just couldn't get done.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. That would be my only question.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 6E is a resolution accepting work on the 2018 fire training facility for grading and site work on the project.
So moved.
First by Tom,
Seconded.
second by Ron. Discussion or questions on this?
Did that all come in within our budget?
I haven't put the final cost in. We haven't paid all final bills, so I don't know where we're at yet, George.
Okay. Any other questions? How much, well, to George's point, not financially, but how much more of the project is left before it's completed on what we voted on for this phase?
I think we've got the final pay estimate from the contractors, either in tonight's claims or that, and we'll have retainage if there's any, and then we still have probably a final engineering bill. So probably less than, maybe a couple $1,000s is probably in that range of what we're left, would be my guess.
And that'll complete this phase then, is that right?
Yes, that'll be everything that's been under this project. And from our standpoint, is E and F are under one budgetary project. So,
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we will call the vote.
Nelson,
Aye.
Orison,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Winchell,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Moriarty.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 6F is a continuation. It's a resolution accepting work on the 2019 Class A Fire Training Facility Project.
So moved.
First by Tom,
Second.
second by Lauren. Any questions or discussions related to this?
John, could you give an update to the citizens on what you're doing out there right now with the grain bins and seats? Just kind of give an update to the citizens.
You bet. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Manager, and council people. Currently, what we've done is we're building a grain bin rescue prop, which will be a bin within a bin. Currently in the state of Iowa, within 130 miles of us, we've experienced over 33 deaths from grain bins. What we'll be doing is having a classroom portion inside that will, pardon me, will institute the use of vertical rescue as well as horizontal rescue, working with grain bin shields as well as other rescue techniques. And that's sort of what's going on as far as with the grain bin. We also, once everything opens up, we do plan to open and have an open house for all of the citizenry to come on out and take a look.
Thanks, John, for the update.
All right.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Ron. Any other questions or discussion related to this item? Hearing none, we will call the vote.
Nelson.
Aye.
Orson.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Winchell.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Moriarty.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 6G is a discussion and potential action regarding city facility closures due to COVID-19. I would just say prior to the discussion, before I kick it over to Amanda, that I'd like to thank all the citizens and the business owners, everybody in the public for being very patient and complying with the governor's orders. We're now in the first couple days of the next big chapter as it relates to openings that have come online, the next big benchmark, and now as a entity, we also as the city need to wrestle with how we handle our facilities and how we handle our staff and things of that nature related to the continued opening of the economy. And so I know the staff has put a lot of hard work into all of this, initially figuring out how to keep everyone safe and scaling it back, and equally has put a lot of hard work into figuring out how to still keep everyone safe while trying to open up face-to-face communication and meetings. And I know Amanda's put a ton of time in, and everybody else. So just want to say thank you to all those people. And with that, I will kick it over to you, Amanda, to lead the discussion.
All right. Thanks, Mayor. So first, I'd like to preface this with just a reminder. When we met at the beginning of April, Council just passed a simple motion that put into effect the closure of city facilities. So the action that you took a few weeks ago was a resolution that was related to staff and ensuring that benefits and wages would continue to be paid if their work schedules were disrupted or we sent them home. So the discussion tonight is about the facilities, not about staff. If you remember, the resolution is set to expire on May 26th. And I would recommend that we let it expire. In fact, I believe a majority of staff is back in their respective offices working. We're maintaining social distancing. We're having staggered start times. We're not sharing break times, masks when you're in the buildings, things like that. So our discussion tonight is centered around the city facilities. And I sent earlier today a brief memo on what we as staff have compiled as recommendations for specific facilities. And so I will just I'll run through those, and we can have a discussion about each one if you like, or I can run through all of them and then have a global discussion with when you're finished. Which would you prefer, Mayor?
You can let's just start rolling through it and then we'll have a discussion after.
Okay, so the campground, our recommendation is that we reopen the city campground effective Friday, May 22nd. I did send you a memo that Jared has prepared that outlines the social distancing measures that'll be put into place, which does include the closure of every other campsite. At this time, the public bathrooms, wash houses, and shelter houses remain closed. Playgrounds remain closed due to Governor Reynolds' orders. She was asked about that on her press conference today, and while not giving a firm answer, did allude to the notion that those will be closed for a while. The aquatic center also remains closed due to Governor Reynolds' orders. She's not given any guidance yet on when we may see new orders on aquatic centers, but that has been a very hot topic of discussion today throughout the city manager's listserv, and several communities are making the decision not to open their pools for the summer. I think we should wait a while yet and see what kind of guidance we get from the state. As we know, with our partnership with the YMCA, we don't need to make a formal decision until early July on if we should open the pool or not.
Amanda?
Oh, yes.
Jared, what kind of time frame do you need to actually get it up and running? I assume there has been very little work done yet this year to actually get it going, right?
You're talking about the aquatic center?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so we've actually completed all the repairs, and all the pumps are in place, and it is filled up and operational currently. We're working on getting that pool balanced. So we've been kind of moving ahead as normal, planning for that May 30th opening date. So we're doing everything we can to try to hit that mark. But I think, after discussion with Amanda today, and what some of the other cities are doing, I think we just need some more conversation on, potentially when or if, that sort of thing.
Well, I was just curious if you'd already spent all the manpower hours to get it up and running. And so another question would be either for you or Amanda. What is our responsibility with the Y? I know that we enter a contract with them. What's the financial responsibility with that? And are they relying on that? Or are we relying on them?
Well, it's mutual, and we did amend the contract to reflect if the opening is delayed, the payment to the Y will be reduced by, I don't have it in front of me, a certain percentage for each day that it's not opened. And if we end up not opening the facility, we're responsible to reimburse the Y for direct costs that they've incurred. I think that's correct. Don can correct me if I'm wrong. But we're not obligated to the full contract amount.
That's essentially correct, and that's true about both the aquatic center and the playgrounds. I frankly thought the Y might be more concerned about that, but they really were quite flexible. So we have agreements in place that are flexible and can accommodate opening dates from May 30th to July 1st.
Amanda, I was wondering about your conversation with the governor. It seems as though she seems to be more reluctant on these green spaces opening them up than some of the other facilities. And I don't understand that, because they talk about following science, and science has been showing that there's very little transmission of the virus in open spaces, especially if they're practicing their social distancing. And I'm wondering why, I would think that we could get these parks opened up and then with certain rules, even the aquatic center, if they allow so many at a time, or that. But I wondered what the discussion was on that.
Sure. Well, just to clarify, I did not have a discussion with the governor. That was during her press conference today, and she was asked about parks. I think she has remained consistent about open spaces. So the trails, dog parks, open green space, she encourages people to use. The challenge that you run into with playground equipment, surfaces at the aquatic center, things like that is they're virtually impossible to keep sanitized in an appropriate manner. And we know that the virus lingers on those types of surfaces for quite some time. So until
Outdoors, I thought that was indoors. I didn't think it survived outdoors for very long at all.
yeah, I don't have a clear answer on that.
And I think
but
destroys it immediately.
I don't think that's accurate. It does linger on surfaces even outside. What time, I'm not sure.
Even in the sunlight, you think?
Right. That's what we're being told when we're on our calls at the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't have an option. I mean, they're closed by a governor's order right now. And so until she changes the order, we really can't make a decision on how to move forward with those particular areas.
Thank you.
I'd have a question on the campsites. Is there a reason they're going every other one? Are they far enough apart or?
Yeah, so it's a social distancing is what's dictating, having those spaces separated, just so you're not next to another camper and, feel that pressure to go talk to somebody else, or you can kind of keep isolated if we have every other site, blocked off.
Okay,
So
thank you.
with that, Jared, are we, I know the river's like getting closer, but are we opening up the bottom sites for the weekend or?
Yeah, so the river jumped up quite a bit here today. We'll keep an eye on it here the next couple of days, but and see what it does by Friday. But yeah, we're anticipating having the lower campground open as well if it's not flooded.
Is that ready to go if it isn't flooded?
Yep. So we turned the water on here this week already, or last week, and got kind of everything running. We still need to just block off some other sites and put some signage up, and we should be good to go. So the one thing we'll have to do is direct people towards our website. We have a form online, a reservation form, and then they'll actually have to pay their bill online, so we don't have any interaction with our camp host, handling money, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Jared.
Yep. And they'll all have to be self-contained campers. So the campers will have, their own bathroom, that situation. And then they're not allowed to have any guests inside the park, and keep the groups within campsites less than 10 people too. So.
I think just to comment on Lauren's question, I think you'll see that there are campgrounds that are allowing campers on every spot, but the city's campground, they're packed in there so tight that I think that's a good move. It's such a small area and they're right on top of each other. So until we get that new campground, right, Jared?
Absolutely.
Okay. Basketball courts, we're recommending that those remain closed until the social distancing guidelines are changed. It's just really hard to enforce 6 feet of separation when you're playing a pickup game of basketball. Tennis courts, we're recommending that we reopen them effective tomorrow. The dog park, that'll reopen as soon as construction is completed out there. We added the sidewalk, and I think they were doing some work on the parking lot. So as soon as that's finished, that'll be reopened to the public. The golf course, Brian has put together a set of procedures that I sent out to you as well. At this time, we'd like to continue to not allow seating in the clubhouse until the social distancing guidelines are changed. It appears to be working right now. Takeout food and drinks, people coming in to pay and then going out and golfing, and then allowing more than one rider in a cart going forward, but still maintaining all of our sanitation practices that are currently in place. And I know Brian has put some additional improvements in place to limit contact with individuals and with the flags and the balls. City Hall, recommending the City Hall remain closed to the public until June 1st. When we reopen, we'll have sneeze guards installed and limit the number of individuals in the building at one time, which shouldn't be that big of a challenge given the new separation at the front entrance. Public meetings, I recommend we resume in-person public meetings on June 1st. However, we'll want to continue to limit in-person attendance to 10 or less. So we'll continue to utilize online meeting platforms for those that are more comfortable participating online right now, and to limit the attendees in the building. I think even for committee meetings, it's easier to do face-to-face meetings in the council chambers. You're able to spread out in a bigger space. So that's how we'll handle those. The library board met last week, I believe it was, and went through a set of recommendations from the library staff. They are looking at a phased approach. Right now, we are sort of in a hybrid of phase 1 and 2, offering curbside delivery. I'd recommend that beginning June 1, they move into phase 3, which does allow individuals into the building. We will not have the public computers available or public seating at that time. It's essentially to get in, get your books, utilize the copy and fax services that have been closed for a while, and get out with a recommendation on reassessing on June 5th, June 15th. To see where we're at numbers wise. As you may remember, the library was the first facility that we closed, even quite a bit earlier than the others, purely for the fact that there's such a diverse group of individuals who use the facility, and there are so many surfaces to be touched that sanitation becomes a real challenge when it's heightened like it is. So it makes sense that they would be the last facility to fully reopen when it's time. So those are the recommendations that we have. I'd be glad to visit more and answer any additional questions that you all might have.
Amanda?
Yeah.
The opening the city hall to the public, will anyone coming in be required to wear masks?
Yes, we would encourage people to wear masks, and we will be ordering surgical masks to have them here for those that don't have them.
And that'd be the same for people entering the library as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Brian. Visit a little bit with me about the 2 people to a cart. Is that same household people? Is that I guess I'm not following that with the social distancing, because obviously a cart, 2 people in a cart is very close. So that would be closer than 2 people would sit if they were going to go in and have a cocktail after their round of golf at a round table.
Brian, you're muted.
We have had family members riding 2 in a cart for quite some time, a couple weeks, I think it's been. We have had a lot of individuals that have requested to ride together if they're coming to the golf course together, whatnot. So at this time, we've left it as a personal choice for individuals to choose whether or not they want to ride in the same cart. We have not had very many people that have chosen to do so, but with the golf leagues upcoming, we've started to move in that direction, as have most of the golf courses in Northwest Iowa are operating under those same standards as well, by giving people the opportunity to make the choice themselves.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Amanda, how many, do you have all the office people back at City Hall? We're just close to the public now.
All except 2 are still working from home. They have special circumstances. And I've been splitting my time the last week between home and City Hall.
So Amanda, you looking for a motion to approve your recommendations, or you simply just moving forward? If you're looking for a motion, I would make that motion.
So we have a first by Bill. So to be clear, in the material that Amanda had sent out with the agenda, so Bill's motion is going to be to include adopting all of the recommendations comprehensively that Amanda just reviewed. So there's a first. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Is there any further discussion or questions related to the items?
Just let me clarify one more thing with, Brian. The clubhouse does not serve food, correct? Just snacks,
That
right?
is correct. We do not serve food. The only thing that we have been selling so far is candy and chips.
Okay, so technically that would, it would not be allowed to open that by the governor's order then without food service, correct?
The clubhouse is still closed to the public outside of
right.
individuals coming in to pay for their fees. That's it.
But that's not our decision. That's based on the governor's motions at this point, correct?
That is correct, with the governor opening the clubhouses.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We have a first. We have a second. Any other discussion? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is department head reports. We will start with the planning department. Amanda?
Just a couple of brief updates. The Planning and Zoning Board met last week. As you noticed on the agenda tonight, we set hearings with 2 text amendments. One is related to subdivisions. The other is related to lot sizes in planned unit residential developments. The second one comes out of our discussions with David Toyer and our economic development plan that was adopted by the council a year ago, January. So we'll have additional educational information for you all on that. The Board of Adjustment met today. Did approve 2 variances, one for a deck and one for a new garage. That's all I have for the planning department.
Any questions for Amanda? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to the reports. Bring up my agenda here. What's the next one on the list, Brian? My screen's not coming up.
Library.
There we go. If I could figure out how to unmute myself. We started curbside delivery beginning May. We average about 20 to 30 people calling in, getting books to pick up. So that seems to be going well. met with the library board and they had approved the phased plan. So we'll be moving forward. Since you have approved it, we'll move forward with that as it stands. We have Zoom story times on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And the links are on our newsletter that is on our website, spencerlibrary.com. So there's also a bunch of fun things for families and kids to do. I believe Sarah Beth put together an outdoor treasure hunt that people can do while social distancing with family members. And then my programmers made the decision that our summer reading program, which is usually our biggest programming push of the year, is going to be entirely online. So we will not be having programming in the building this summer. It's just too soon to have 70, 80 kids all in the library at once. It's going to be hard enough on them because school will be out and they'll all want to be on the computers, and we'll have to have isolated computers and not very many of them. So we'll have to find some other things for the kids to do. Either it's a make and take something, or I know they all want to get on there and play computer games, but it's just not going to happen for quite a while. But other than that, we're moving toward reopening to the public, and we're looking forward to seeing our patrons again because we miss them. So,
hey Mandy, can we? I know they got the computer bank with all the computers on in one area. Is there any way we can move some of those computers so we still have the same amount of computers?
We are looking into moving them. We're trying to figure out how to keep all of them running, but at the same time have enough space for people to navigate the shelving while maintaining social distancing. So instead of a bank of 8, we may have a bank of 6 or 4 and 2 or somewhere else in the library. We are working on a plan to make sure that we get as many computers that are available for the kids or for people to use. We will probably we'll probably put about an hour time limit on the computers. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mandy. Fire Department, Chief Conyon.
Good evening again, everybody. Last month we had over 55 calls for service. With that said, our ambulance 104, we had a couple of fall victims, as well as a couple of altered levels of consciousness. Some of our EMS runs included overdose, as well as a couple of assault victims, as well as dealing with a couple of patrons that were a little bit overserved. Our fire runs included having a true basement fire, having mutual aid calls with both Everly Royal, Fostoria, and Dickens throughout the month. What I'd really like to reiterate is the use of smoke detectors. Please, while we're all home, take a moment and check your smoke detector battery. This basement fire that we had, the smoke detector saved that family's life. I can't say enough about the use of a smoke detector. Finally, on a little bit of training, we got to work with the Park District by doing a controlled burn, if you did see it, down there by the tennis courts, as well as working with the school district doing a controlled burn on 10th Avenue. Something staying with coming up this month, we'll be going out to all the different grave sites starting tomorrow and putting memorial flags out, which is truly an honor, to pay that forward. Lastly, we talk about numbers. Just know that all the members, we had over 225 temperature checks last month, and that's what we're going to continue to do. We're washing good hands, we're exercising, good PPE, good mask protection. And again, we too want to be on the developing side for going back to a new normal. Any questions? Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you, Chief. Police Department, Chief Warburton.
Good evening. The police department responded to 1,035 calls last month, as well as made 29 arrests. Our newest officer, Matt Molina, he recently completed his field training officer program. So he is out on his own. So I can officially tell everybody that for the second time in 6 years, we are up to full staff. So I don't want to jinx it, but things are moving in the right direction. This last week, the police department canvassed the city of Spencer for inoperable motor vehicles. So letters went out here Friday and today. So we've identified 53 vehicles so far. So letters went out to property owners and as well as the vehicle owners. So in case you get any calls, that's what that's about. We're definitely working with them to bring their vehicles back into compliance. Lastly, over the weekend, me and my wife went down and we qualified to test there at Test Iowa down in Storm Lake. And I just wanted to let everybody know that I've heard some skepticism about the tests and maybe it's painful or not. And I can tell you firsthand experience that they run a very professional, safe testing site. And the test itself was absolutely painless. So I encourage anybody that is apprehensive about going down there that it was absolutely painless, and we encourage everybody to get tested if they qualify. Are there any questions?
Chief, on licenses and possibly insurance, does that cover travel trailers that are setting in their lawns and in backyards? And
The travel trailer part of it, that usually was taken care of as an accessory vehicle underneath Steve Hallgren. So I'd have to check with Amanda to see how we want to proceed going forward with that.
I've had some complaints on some of those.
George.
Yes.
We've talked. I think that the one that you're talking about, you're aware of it. We can visit offline. It's in someone's backyard, but we can't verify if it's licensed or not. So.
Correct. I am aware of that vehicle.
Chief, could you touch on Donovan's previous point on the ATVs, just to clarify for everyone and for the press? Who is able to ride an ATV in town?
So, good question. So the ATVs, you have to have a valid driver's license to drive an ATV, 16 years of age or older. The 16 and 17-year-olds have to have an ATV safety certificate as well. So they actually have to go in and they have to take the safety program for them to qualify for that. As well, the biggest restriction for the ATVs is that they cannot be driven on a state highway. So they can make a direct crossing of the highway, but they cannot drive on Highway 71 and 18 as it pertains to Spencer. So direct crossing there. The golf carts as well, you have to be 16 years of age and have a valid driver's license to be able to use those. I think to Donovan's point, I think the golf cart, especially that ordinance, hopefully we can get those displayed at the Muni and down at the Country Club to help alleviate any questions that anybody might have.
And school permits do not count in this. You have to be 16 and licensed.
Correct. You have to have the valid Iowa driver's license to drive, basically a Class C driver's license or higher.
All right. Thank you.
Mark, on those vehicles that qualify, ATV, UTV, side-by-sides, they have to be registered as well, do they not?
Correct. They have to be registered with the state of Iowa, have their regular ATV permit, but the permit for the city that we used to require, as far as them getting outside of town, will no longer be required.
Okay. Chief, question: so the only way you can get from north of the river, south of the river is either go on either bypass, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I think that's important. People understand that.
Yeah, we know that the Grand Avenue Bridge is going to be very tempting to people, and I'm just going to ask the general public to follow these regulations. They've done an excellent job so far, Bill, as far as following the current regulation, and that's why we move forward with the ATV ordinance that we did now.
Thank you.
Can we get some signs posted on either end of the bridge to note that they're not allowed to cross it?
I'm sure we can, and I'm sure anything is possible. But as far as when they're on the highway, there are certain regulations that the state of Iowa does require. So if it meets their specs, we might have to be very creative on where we put those signs, because they cannot be in the right of way up there on the state highway without getting approval by the DOT.
What about insurances?
Insurance is required on both the ATVs as well as the golf carts. Valid proof of insurance.
And golf carts covered under homeowner insurance, they have to have a different rider on city streets, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief? All right. Thank you. Next is Public Works. Mark?
Good evening. The street division's back to full staff with staggered start times and reducing the times they're together in the building. So we're trying to catch back up on maintenance projects. There's no really such thing as catching up, but we'll try to work as efficient as possible. One of the big projects will certainly be asphalt repairs prior to the seal coat program. That's always kind of a deadline or a timeline that has us always a little concerned about that. I'd like to thank Al Phillips. He's just done an outstanding job with some informational videos. If you are a Facebook person, I would encourage you to like Spencer Recycling Basics. There's some really interesting things he's done that are YouTube videos that are linked regarding the new recycling center at the Hy-Vee State grocery store, along with operations at the transfer station. You know, the transfer station operations have been going exceptionally well. It is a little bit of a burden on the citizens. We have changed operations, but Tom Clark, the solid waste superintendent, gave a really nice email on how people were receiving that, and we're just working together as a community to try to do the best we can through this COVID crisis, and we appreciate the understanding. We're still not doing any curbside pickup. The reason for that is, if you get questions, we're trying to limit the time that two employees are in the same vehicle, and it usually takes two employees to go pick up an appliance. So we're not doing any appliance pickup. However, we are still doing grass pickup because that is a one-person job normally. So you can schedule that through the transfer station. We do have a position open still at the solid waste division. We're just kind of at the tail end of receiving some applications. So if you're interested, please check that out. Also at the landfill, we've hired some day laborers that come out of the Sioux Center and Sioux City area to help with litter control. That's always a challenge this time of year with the prevailing winds, but we've made good progress with that, and the operations have been altered there as well. Keep people in the trucks, email the scale tickets out, and we're still making it happen and providing service to the community, and it's been received well there also. So that is all I have for the evening.
Mark, I have a question for you. I've had some people ask me, has the city ever considered a citywide event like you see in a lot of other towns, where one time every spring you can put just about everything out, and the city does a one time I think it's generally you put it out on a certain weekend, and then that Monday they come and pick it up. I don't know exactly what they call it, but I think
a citywide cleanup type day.
Yeah.
Or amnesty day. the reason, Tom, we've talked about it, and the reason that we don't do that in Spencer is because those communities that have that don't have free solid waste at the transfer station. They don't have that opportunity available to them for any additional residential solid waste. So because we have that kind of rare bonus for the community, then we have not had a city-wide cleanup amnesty day scheduled.
Okay, I thought that I had heard that before too, and that's what I had told some people, but I told them I would get a definite answer for them. So thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mark? All right, thank you. Jared, Parks and Rec.
Good evening. So this Thursday, we're having our master park plan public meeting. It'll be a Zoom meeting. I think I sent everyone the link to that. So I encourage you to participate in that. They're going to be going over the data results from the survey that we sent out a couple months ago and had the citizens fill out online. So we'll be curious to see what the results are, some of their recommendations. There will be a time for questions and kind of the chat feature, and then we'll try to answer those questions at the end of that presentation. So that is on Thursday, May 21st, this Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. So I encourage everyone to participate in that and ask questions and participate in the kind of the final public meeting of that master park plan, and then they'll go back, review some more data, and put a document together, kind of a draft document that we'll get to see prior to implementation or adoption, and we can make changes at that point, and then they'll come up with a final draft. So exciting stuff to keep that moving forward, and interesting to see what the citizens of Spencer had to say. I haven't seen any of the results yet, so it'll be fun to see. We kind of touched on the aquatic center a little bit. Like I said, I think we still need to have some more discussions on opening dates, if we open, that sort of thing, moving forward. But right now we have planned like we're going to open, so I think we just need to have some more discussion on that. We touched on the campground as well too, and so we'll be implementing that and opening that on Friday. The dog park, so the trail is finished. We have finished the parking lot. We have put crushed concrete or limestone, 1.5 inch limestone down, so that is in place. We need to finish up and put some barricades around that parking lot so we don't have vehicles driving on the green space, and then we should be able to open up by the end of the week is my hope. A couple other things, we're still trying to get the cemetery, do some trimming, finish up mowing, doing those sort of things before Memorial Day, so that looks decent for Memorial Day weekend. We are going to pick up our flowers and start planting those down Grand Avenue and down the boulevard here this week, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And we're going to continue to work on our park ID signs. We haven't gotten those up as quickly as I'd like, but we're going to start working on those and try to put 1 to 2 up here each week as time allows and staff allows. So still trying to clean trails once a week to keep those open because they are getting a lot of use. And out at Stolly's, we've had orange cones there by the outlet structure. We're going to try to get those repaired here soon. I have talked to J.R. Schumacher, who will be replacing about 5 panels where those cones are to replace that big crack out at Stolly's. So that's all I got. You guys have any questions?
All right. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate all your hard work. Golf course, Brian.
Good evening, everyone. Golf course, things are going pretty smoothly for us out there. Amanda touched on some of the brief changes that we're having starting now. Everybody seems to be following the provisions pretty well. Still have kind of a shortened staff, so it's kind of been challenging with some of the things getting done, but my staff has been great. They've been working very diligently and making sure that all of our customers are getting taken care of in a safe and sanitary manner. The irrigation system is up and running. That's been great. It's working very nicely. So that's helped with quite a few headaches. Other than that, we're just kind of business as usual, I guess. Just plugging along, waiting for some nice weather. I don't have anything else unless there's any questions.
All right. Thanks for your hard work, Brian. Don, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have 2 quick points to make. First, listening to all the discussion this evening, I feel really fortunate. I think our operations have been disrupted less than most of the rest of you. I leave home, I come to the office, I stay here all day, and I go home. It's continues in this new normal to be fairly normal, and the things we're working on fairly typical. The second point I would make is that, as you probably appreciate, the courts have essentially been closed for 3 months. Magistrate court is not prosecuting cases. Our pending abandoned home case was delayed. It is now set for fall. I believe the magistrate court will become active again in June, and we'll be able to start to work on the backlog. That's really all I have to say, unless there are questions.
All right. Thank you, Don. Appreciate all your work. City Engineers Report, Ross.
Good evening. Quick construction update. Over at the landfill, Rognus Brothers has moved back in. They moved back in last week. They've been working on the undercell piping and hope to get that finished up this week. Once they get that complete, they'll be working on the clay liner, which would be quite a bit of dirt to be moved on that job. And then here in Spencer on the West 4th Street sewer replacement, Holstein has removed and replaced all of the temporary pavements on that project. Those pavements were open at the end of last week. As soon as things dry up, they'll get in and finish backfilling and start seeding on that project. And hopefully that can happen before Friday, when we're predicted more rain. The only other project we have going on is the intake replacement project. Corey Jurgens Construction replaced 2 intakes on 24th Avenue. He'll move over to 23rd Avenue when he comes back to town and get started on those. So, any questions?
Ross, I drove out on West 4th Street this afternoon and noticed probably, is it west of the river? There's a pile of stuff still laying there. Is that the contractor going to pick that up?
That is, they do have a pile of garbage pretty much laying there. It's just broken pipe and pallets and everything that needs to be hauled to the transfer station.
The rest of it looks really good.
Yeah, they're getting it shaped up pretty well. The river bottom has been challenging. They figured out that completing that pipe work in the winter was a really good deal for them. They've had a track dozer stuck in the bottom already this spring, and they had a track excavator buried up to the frame too, so they managed to get that out. So I think the work that was done last winter was very important to get done with the frost that was in the ground. So,
All right. Thank you, Ross. Anything else for Ross? Appreciate all you do. Amanda, City Manager Report.
Thanks, Mayor. I just have a few additional items. Our task force continues to meet every day at 4:30. We continue to find that to be very valuable. You'll see this week and going forward, there'll be some joint social media messaging between the city, county, and hospital, just reiterating proper, hygiene practices during this time, why it's important to wear a mask, why it's important to maintain social distancing. So we're appreciative of the hospital and their guidance on that. Tomorrow, we're going to be issuing what we're calling a business reopening toolkit. So it's a joint publication, if you will, between the city, the chamber, and the corridor. Just a lot of valuable information for business owners if they're choosing to reopen, different guidelines that are laid out by the Iowa Department of Public Health, CDC, just different professional organizations for different types of businesses. So I do want to reiterate that these are not requirements. That's just guidelines and some information. If you have questions about, how to safely reopen your business. Lastly, as I mentioned, we were talking about facilities. The pools continue to be a topic of hot discussion right now, and what do we do as a community? Visiting with Jared earlier, I think it's best if we wait for a couple of weeks at least, see what kind of guidance we get from the governor's office, and then we can take that guidance and if we're able to reopen, make sure that we can do it safely and reasonably. So be looking for a continued discussion on the pool. And with that, I would entertain any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. Mayor's report. We have one item of business. We have an opening on the plumbing board. And I would seek a motion to appoint Brian Palmer to the Plumbing Examiners Board for a term starting July 1st, 2020 and expiring on June 30, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
First by Tom, second by Bill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Welcome, Brian, and thank you for your dedication and appreciate your willingness to serve. The only other item I would have is we do anticipate, Governor Reynolds probably this week or early next week will make the next round of announcements related to her next date that she's put out, which is May 27th. So we'll adjust accordingly to what he's doing. And then I would encourage the citizens to, with the testing, Iowa Test has opened up a location in Storm Lake. And so we have one fairly close to us. People, will go down and get tested. If somebody in your household does become COVID positive, please adhere to the CDC recommended quarantine standards. We'll get those out to the public here later this week in some press releases. But the cases in Northwest Iowa continue to rise. And so we'll monitor that and watch that, and we'll make adjustments accordingly. So with that, I would entertain any questions anyone has.
Do we have many in the hospital?
None? Oh, go ahead, George.
I say, do we have many
No.
in the hospital?
I believe there are none, right?
Right, not in Spencer. Northwest Iowa has about 85 total.
And we must have quite a few of ours that were tested positive that have completed and are, I won't say cured of it, but finished with the sickness.
Yeah, I believe Jim said all are recovered completely, maybe except one, I believe, who is recovering at home. So not an official stat, but I believe it's close to that. So
super. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So committee reports.
Yeah, so we have our regular city council meeting is scheduled for June 1st. I also sent you all an email earlier today with a whole slew of meetings, so I will read those. We need to have a long-term planning committee on Tuesday, June 2nd at 5:30 to discuss the electrical board recommendations and to discuss a rental inspection program. On June 8th at 5:30 p.m., we'd like to have a joint personnel and parks committee meeting to discuss the full-time parks employee that was approved for the upcoming budget and review a job description and make a recommendation to council on that. On June 8th at 6:30 p.m., we'd like to have a joint personnel and long-term planning committee meeting to discuss the planning director position. And then on June 16th at 5:30 p.m., we'd like to have a personnel committee meeting to discuss the wage study. I believe Charlie is planning to be there in person, maybe via Zoom, to present his final recommendations. So I would remind you all, as it relates to that, we've had our calls with him. We've sent all of the proposed recommendations out. So if you have additional questions or you'd like additional information from him, if you could get that to me by the end of the week, so we have time to turn it around, I would appreciate it. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. I would entertain a motion to approve the bills and claims.
I move.
Second.
First by Bill, second by sounded like Donovan. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry. Any got a little ahead of myself. Any questions related to the bills and claims? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Any other business opportunity to address the council? Would anybody like the platform?
I make a comment. We just wish Amanda a lot of luck tomorrow.
Thanks.
You pitching softballs in a couple months, Amanda?
Yes. Basketballs. I'll be shooting baskets.
Basketball, shooting hoops. Okay.
She pitched a lot of them tonight.
I like the mullet look that Chief Canyon's going for.
Yeah.
Tom, I do have some hair care products anytime, you know.
John's folk music album will be coming out end of the month.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. Appreciate everybody's willingness on the technology, as we've done the last couple months and moved through the meetings, and hopefully we can meet in person at the next council meeting. So I look forward to seeing everybody. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
First by George, second by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Have a great evening.
You too.